Hello and welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is going to be a 4v4 random team game on Golems in the Mist, and this game is going to be fairly silly actually, but it's going to be a very fun strategy. So my team and the opponent's team actually have players that are AFK or otherwise not sort of controlling stuff. Now red comes back 40 seconds in. Purple is, I think, in the next 10 seconds or so. We'll see here how long it takes him. Yeah, it takes him another like 10-12 seconds, and I guess he comes back and leaves. So luckily, we are able to control purple. I actually leave it to somebody else this game. A lot of times I'll be the one to control them, but I wasn't really too excited about the prospect, and somebody else, especially since that base is all the way across the map instead of close to me. So somebody else sort of took over, and I just let them. I was like, that's fine. I'll let them do that, and but yeah, I go for a late altar, which on this map seems really bizarre with no tavern. But I just want to get a bunch of archers and a priest of the moon out, and I'm actually planning on switching to glaive throwers after I get a decent amount of archers. I just want to have a really long range, high DPS type army, and glaive throwers have sort of extreme range. The longest range tier 1 unit there is, because no other race can get like the long range siege in tier 1. And True Shot Aura is going to be very good with mass ranged, of course. So that's the goal, to get a bunch of ranged units and to really pressure early. If somebody is like teching, glaive throwers should be fairly dangerous for that player if they sort of skimp on tier 1 and tech. If they get towers, that's not really that big of a deal. Get 2 or 3 towers, they're stationary and they don't have the same range. They have a lower 700 range, whereas a glaive thrower is like over 1,000, I think. So we'll sort of look at the numbers here, but yeah, the range of the glaive throwers is going to make them very dangerous, even to towers, especially to buildings, and then to like low hit point stuff. And the other thing is about the glaive throwers, they actually get like a really big damage boost with the attack upgrades. While they can't get armor upgrades at all, which is pretty bad. I think that's probably for balance purposes. Like if you could, the fact that Elf is the only race that can get this extreme ranged siege unit at tier 1, they balance reasons, I can see why they would want the armor to be sort of limited a little, but anyway, I think they get like plus 20% attack damage per attack upgrade, which I think normally is only like 10 to 12% for other units, if I remember correctly. So now the glaive throwers attack pretty slow. Now the range 1150, so yeah, they have over 1,000 range, much more range than the towers. So and they can do sort of splash damage to stuff, splash damage to buildings, but they are very slow. They have very low hit point values at 300. Again, probably for balance reasons. They don't want the elf just to steamroll anybody, if they try to tech or whatever. But yeah, they're fairly costly as well, like 210 gold. We've got red and blue here teaming up to rush. Again, whoever controlled purple just teched immediately. They didn't actually get the tower up too early either, so this is not great. I was actually sort of controlling these militia a little bit to try to spread the damage out from the Blade Master, since I was just waiting for the glaive throwers anyway. But yeah, they're doing a sort of not amazing, not a stellar job defending this. But given the fact that purple whoever teched with purple didn't get a tower immediately, they didn't get any tier 1 units, it's not too terrible. They're sort of doing a serviceable job. We're not going to lose immediately. But anyway, I actually didn't know this sort of trick. I think the AI just glitched out on the rock golem. Like I attacked him, I guess with the glaive throwers or something. And anyway, he ends up running like over here and just sitting there until I attacked him again, and he like ran back. So that was sort of, I'm not exactly sure what triggered that, but something to play around with, like the AI with glaive throwers. I know like the creeps don't want to get too far from their spawn location; they'll immediately run back, and glaive throwers can lure them very easily. But yeah, the fact that he just stopped right here without being surrounded was kind of funny. But I guess maybe it like the AI thought he was like close enough to his spawn point to stop. I don't know, but anyway, sort of goofy there. So again, they're still trying to defend, and here's where I've got 4 glaive throwers. I generally go True Shadow first with the Priestess every time because of you look +2 damage per archer. I want to say I'm getting like +5 damage on the glaive throwers per glaive thrower, so it's very very quick to add up more than 10, which is the flaming arrow bonus per attack. So if I can surpass 10 damage a volley, without a mana cost, of course I'm going to prefer that, because also the upside is much more. Like if I obviously if I surpass 10 damage, it's going to be better. But I can go way further if I get like a 50 food army, 60 food army. It's very easily going to have the potential to jump way past 10 damage, and plus, like I said, not costing me mana. And I actually get the Scout Owl because I don't want to get flanked. I don't. If somebody comes in with an army behind me, or gets to the glaive throwers, they are a glass cannon. So if I'm engaging one army that I can sort of handle, especially with Teal's help here, and I know where he's at, he's nowhere near the glaive throwers, then it's not really a big deal. I can react much quicker to one army, and avoid it. Whereas if somebody flanks me, it's going to be much harder. Like right now, somebody was coming behind me and flanking. I wouldn't be able to micro these glaive throwers quite as easily, and again, it wouldn't take them very long to sort of just surround my units and get a bunch of kills or force a town portal. And that's the thing with this glaive thrower strategy. You don't want to base race like this, with the units that they've got and we've got. They've got a bunch of piercing damage rifles. Red really doesn't have hardly any, and I always got Bat Riders, but earlier he didn't really have anything, and he doesn't have liquid fire. So the Bat Rider DPS is sort of, even with attack upgrades, it's really only sort of, look, 14 to 18. They do attack average speed versus very slow for the glaive throwers, but 37 to 71 plus 11 with the True Shot aura. So and then also the Priestess is going to get her own +6. At +6, already 6 damage compared to level 2 Flaming Arrow is about a little bit under a third. It's like 3.3 repeating. So so yeah, it's I mean 6 goes into 20 3.3 3 1/3 times. So so yeah, that's already a big chunk of it right there. And then you add, look, a +11 on these glaive throwers, +4 on the archers. That's just with one attack upgrade. It's a good synergy with the attack upgrades and the True Shot aura. So now you see, this is why you do not base race. There's no way. Like even if they're not defending purple's base at all, this tower, it's going to take them forever to destroy a tower with these riflemen. Even if red's army is up here with the Bat Riders, it's still going to take pretty. Look at orange. He can repair. But he's going to have to kill these peasants first and stuff. So meanwhile, yellow's base is gone, and he also lost his army here. So nobody helped yellow. What they really needed to do was not. They didn't even trade bases. Like none of the bases are really gone. Red is going to end up getting my base because I don't have really any anti-air there. I should have left some more archers. Like if these archers, well, these are glaive throwers. If I would have like these archers, if I had left these 3 archers and then built 3 more, I could have really put up a big fight against red's army, killed some Bat Riders probably or whatever. But anyway, I just go over to green's base and boom, it's gone. He didn't have anything to defend, so that's an important point. But so green, whoever's controlling green was doing like a really dumb strategy. I don't know if he was like feeding somebody or just trolling. I guess I could look here. This is something I didn't really consider. Yeah, okay, so green has like 1,000 gold. He's really messing around and not helping. So that's sort of not really a good idea. But so yeah, that's probably another big reason we won this game so easily. But again, the decision, they still could have, like, red and purple still could have, or not red and purple, but red and blue could have tried to defend yellow and given themselves a shot. Kept green alive. If they save yellow's base, green's base is going to continue to at least mine stuff. Now you don't know what he's going to do with that, but Um, but yeah, I get to blues base and look how quick, boom, it's like maybe four or five volleys and it looks like it's gone. These are plus 11 per glaive thrower. You add that up, it's probably like 9, 10 glaive throwers or something. That's an amazing amount of damage. The burst damage is pretty strong. The archers are getting plus 4, and now I'm level 5, so I'm gonna get even another plus 10 on the Priestess of the Moon herself. So already that's a third of Flaming Arrow. So all I got to do is surpass 20 damage with level 3 True Shot Aura. That's so look, plus 6 on an archer with only one attack upgrade, plus 16 on a glaive thrower. Already one archer, one glaive thrower. That's it. That's 22 damage right there, plus the 10 on the priestess. That covers Flaming Arrow damage. Now everything else is just more. Like it's just more damage than Flaming Arrow. So that's sort of the comparative thing, and then the upside of the priestess. I can threaten buildings. I can threaten lower hit point like units stuff. Anything ranged if they're trying to like trade blows. Not terrible. I mean, you really don't want to trade blows with glaive throwers with units generally, but certain units you can do it. Um, they're immune to certain spells: Phantom Knives, Death Coil, Frost Nova, and Pale. Fork Lightning, Chain Lightning. There's a lot of spells that Hex. Plenty of spells that the glaive throwers are immune to. Plenty that they're not. Blizzard, Flame Strike, Breath of Fire, Shockwave, Cluster Rockets. Uh, Carrion Swarm in the coming patch is going to be able to hit mechanical units, but uh, Flaming Arrow will, Frost Arrow will hit the glaive throwers. So, but certain spells, will not offer any sort of danger to the glaive throwers uh, either. So, Stomp, I don't think is going to affect the glaive throwers. So yeah, red does knock my base out with the Bat Riders. I did have some archers here sort of posing a little bit of defense. I uprooted the Ancients of War, so it's harder to kill them a little bit, and it can chase around the Blade Master, so I did some damage there to his army. But look here, we've got Teal's army base is still there, Orange's base and sort of his army is still there, and Purple's base, they didn't, the only base they destroyed was mine. They didn't knock out anybody else's base completely. So, and what they gave up, was 4 bases. So now it's like, okay, Red, what kind of army do you have? Your army is going to be pretty poor against archers. I don't have a ton of archers, but, I've got a handful, 3 archers here. We got a bunch of casters, Dragon Hawks, rifles. He can't fight our army. Like, even a few of our armies, like, alone could probably do pretty well against him, considering his hero is damaged and a lot of his Battle Riders are damaged. But so now I've got all these towers. If we had Cloud for the Dragon Hawks, like if Orange had the Cloud upgrade, he could just use it, and it looks like he's getting it, but a little bit late there. But anyway, Flame Strike here. So yeah, this is going to be just easy as very easy just to finish this off. But but yeah, the Glaive Thrower. This is more like it's a little bit of a troll strategy. I mean, if you want to engage any kind of army with this, it has to be a small army. It's going to be better if it's like a non-melee army, like the Blade Master, the Tauren Chieftain. These are really strong heroes against this. Panda, a Death Knight with Unholy Aura, Ghouls, Footmen, Grunts. All these are going to be very strong if they can get to the Glaive Throwers, because the Glaive Throwers have a minimum range where they have to, they have to be over that range to actually hit a target. So melee units very dangerous. And a lot of the units like grunts and stuff have more hit points and can get armor upgrades, so they can surpass the glaive throwers in those respects very easily. And their DPS against glaive throwers is going to be good. They attack really quick, they move faster than the glaive throwers, so these are the risks. So in terms of priority targets, low hit point stuff, ranged units that are just standing there taking the shots, like rifles, fiends, buildings for sure. If you can like haul somebody, that's what you want to do. You're going to be getting bonus damage. So, assuming you're not just like sacrificing all your glaive throwers to kill like, one building or something. Getting free shots on buildings is generally good, especially knocking out like their production, their supply, or their economy, and the ability to TP there. All these things are very strong. The shops are going to die really quick to glaive throwers. They don't have as many hit points generally as other buildings. Let's see if we can find a shop to give you the example here. Okay, nobody is gonna humor. Okay, Arcane Vault, 583 hit points, and that's with 2 levels of masonry upgrades. So, you subtract however much from the masonry upgrades. So yeah, that's obviously what the glaive throwers are gonna be strong against. Again, unarmored targets like dryads, casters, kodo beasts. Those are huntresses. Those are great targets as well. Because they're ranged and they're unarmored, so you get bonus damage. On the flip side, magic damage casters are going to do extra to glaive throwers. But the big thing is, though, is glaive throwers have the range advantage over pretty much everything in Tier 1, except other glaive throwers, even more than the towers. And then at Tier 2, you start getting like demolishers and mortars and meat wagons in there, but everything else besides those type of units, nothing else has that extreme range. Now, the range doesn't matter if they just can chase you down with speed or like air units, unholy aura, endurance aura, these type of things. Even just in general, like agility heroes, lots of heroes are going to be able to run down glaive throwers. So if you get engaged in a battle where you really can't kill their units or the heroes, you really have to TP out, or you're probably going to be just demolished. Losing like 4 glaive throwers is a massive resource loss. It takes a lot of resources to rebuild them. It takes a lot of time to rebuild them. And in the meantime, focusing on glaive throwers, you probably aren't teching up very quick, and you don't have enough resources to sustain like transitioning to something else, like bears, and you don't really want to transition to bears with a priestess. So Chimera, that's the time gap and the resources required to do that. You really need 2 Ancients of War to mass glaive throwers in a timely fashion. So that's an extra cost. A Hunter's Hall, that's a cost that you wouldn't otherwise need for Chimera build. So it doesn't really transition very well, and it will leave you very weak if you ever lose like most of your glaive throwers. Also, when they force you to town portal, if they can figure out where you town portal to, moving around with a big slow army is another really big risk. You have to run all the way across the map. If you don't do anything when you get to wherever your target is, well then obviously you just wasted a bunch of time, and then they might either make you town portal again, they might pick off some glaive throwers. So you very quickly get into a situation where your army is becoming useless. Against air units, your glaive throwers are useless. Against faster melee units, it's going to be bad, and stuff like that. So you just and just even just a large army, like a 50 food army of like Tier 1 units, that's pretty hard to deal with glaive throwers, because most, unless it's huntresses, most Tier 1 units are going to be huntresses or archers are arguably pretty vulnerable to glaive throwers even in mass. But everything else has like heavy armor, a lot of hit points, like grunts, fiends, stuff like that. Footmen, they don't have a ton of hit points, but they have more than the glaive thrower a bit, and they can get attack upgrades, or sorry, they can get armor upgrades, and if they get in range to do melee attacks, the glaive throwers have to move, and they're slow. Compared to the footmen, they're very slow. So that's that's sort of the risk there with the glaive throwers. They're big glass cannons. But if the enemy reacts incorrectly, or the timing or whatever happens, or if you fight behind your allies who have like melee units or entangle or slow, stuff like that, then you can do okay. It's not as bad of a problem that you've got a big slow army. If you're sitting in a standing battle, it maybe doesn't pose as much of an issue. But again, in the mid game, your army very quickly starts to become it just becomes bad to useless. So you really have to do your damage early game and like right at mid game. If you can stop them from getting Tier 2 buildings, you can knock out their shop, knock out a town hall somewhere, knock out their production, knock out their supply, so they can't get like Tier 2 units and a second hero and stuff like that. Well, then you might be onto something if you can catch it at a point where the enemies don't have town portals. If your allies force them to all town portals somewhere and they destroy the shop there before everybody buys their town portals again, and then you hit the other side of the map with glaive throwers. Well, that's a great strategy. If no players can defend that, then your allies can just pull back or town portal themselves, and in the meantime you knock out a base or you knock out an expansion or something like that. So that's really sort of the strategy you want to be going for. Again, the priestess, very swingy in terms of damage. When you barely have any units, she's bad because True Shot Aura requires a certain number of units to really be a viable spell, and then after that point it becomes a good ability, potentially a very strong ability, but you need a lot of units for that. And the Priestess Moon's base stats are probably, for balance purposes, they're sort of below average to compensate for the high upside. So while you can have a really massive damage boost from a Priest of the Moon, especially as you get level to 5 or even to 6 for Starfall, there's also the chance that when you don't have units, or when you don't have a lot of ranged units fighting together with the Priestess, the damage is terrible. It's just bad. And the other point is, when you shadow meld, if you shadow meld, True Shot Aura goes away when you're shadow melded, which I don't really like that per se. I mean, I guess to some degree, for balance purposes, if you could just shadow meld and you couldn't stop True Shot Aura, that'd be, or whatever aura you have while you're shadow melded with heroes, that could be sort of annoying. But anyway, that's a little bit of a rant there. So that's going to be the end of this audio. ScryMind signing out.